Noah's Ark. You know it, you love it, you at the very least remember it. But chances are you don't fear it. At least not yet. No matter how much you know of Christianity, chances are you know of this tale from either the Bible or Muppets from Space. Ah yes, the story of Noah being tasked by the God to make a giant boat called the Ark, where him, his family, and 2 of every animal can stay safe from the flood that God will bring onto the world. What's not to love? Zoo animals, mountainous boats, the son of Lamech himself, baby demon giants. Yeah, you heard me right. Noah really is the son of Lamech. Easily among the top 1 murderers in the Bible who made polygamy canon. Oh wait, you were confused about these guys? Well, that's because you haven't heard the whole version of this tale. See, there's one part of Noah's story whose truth lies a little bit more in some devilish controversy. The flood. Sure, we knew of God's intention with flooding the earth, basically restarting the world. But in order to truly know why he believed the flood was so necessary, we gotta dive a little deeper into another more rarely known medium, one excluded from the biblical canon. You've all read the title. Let's dive into a book filled with all the conflicting answers. Let's talk about the Book of Enoch. Hello? Oh, there are 3 books of Enoch? Well, why is only the first one considered the Book of Enoch? The Book of Enoch, also known as 1 Enoch. Basically, the Book of Enoch is a collection of ancient religious texts that emphasize the moral significance of the flood in Noah's story from a more apocalyptic angle. The book describes the flood as punishment for the wicked and blessedness for the righteous. Look, I don't blame you if you don't know much about this book. Remember, it was excluded from the biblical canon. Kind of similar to how all plans and stories of Kang were removed from the Marvel Cinematic Universe's canon. Most consider the books to be pseudepigrapha, a fancy word for fake bullshit. Man, kinda makes you feel sorry for this Enoch guy. Poured all his passion into a project only to be defined by his controversial... You're shitting me, right? Okay, so it turns out that the author of this divisive text is said to be the same Enoch who happens to be Noah's great-grandfather? If this is correct, that means Enoch is related to Lamech, which is insane. Here, take a look at Genesis 5. A written account of Adam's family line. You know, like Adam and Eve. Each and every one of Adam's ancestors gets a section explaining how long they lived and mentioning the child that they would bear, which would be next in their lineage, before ending with the statement that they would die. The cycle would then repeat until it trickles all the way down to our good friend Noah. However, there is one person in this line whose text stands out compared to all the others. Enoch. The text says that out of his 365 years of life, Enoch spent 300 of them walking faithfully with God. Must have been 300 great years, as the Genesis says that unlike the rest of his family line, Enoch didn't end up dying. Instead, he walked with God into heaven. This great feat of not dying was shared by one other person, Elijah from the Bible, who was taken up by God in a chariot of fire and horses of fire. In any case, while Elijah's achievement was at least somewhat noteworthy, there's not much behind why or even how Enoch was gifted such an honorable end other than being commended as someone who pleases God. He's not even mentioned much in other texts beside his narrative of narcissism. The book includes a recount of Enoch's ascension to heaven, his direct connections to God, his differing visions and prophecies of the world and future events, and his direct connection to the story of Noah's Ark. A lot of great stuff here. Turns out this Enoch fellow had a lot more of an importance to him than many would have ever realized thanks to his book. Well, I mean, if he even wrote the book. Here's the catch. There's a good chance he wasn't even around long enough to have written the book in the first place. While we don't have an exact date of when the book has been written, many have estimated that it was sometime roughly between 400 BCE and the end of the 1st century CE. However, Enoch was said to have been born between 3341 and 3382 BC and was taken up by God between 3020 and 3010 BC, many years before the book even existed. It didn't make sense that the Book of Enoch had been written by Enoch, which is one of the main reasons it is regarded as pseudepigrapha. Someone easily could have hopped on the Enoch bandwagon to boost their scripture's credibility.
Hey! Remember that guy who ascended to heaven?
The one surrounded by flaming horses?
No, the other one. He just came out with a book about the apocalyptic flood. This book is from heaven.
Where can I trade my currency?
You know, it's funny. For a bit of two people talking, they bring up a solid but simple counterargument. Enoch was an amazing being, living far longer than any average human should. Add on to that his connection to someone who is said to have inspired many authors to write the Bible over the course of hundreds of years, and it's possible that time and logic might not be as important of a factor as initially thought. Besides, the book was initially accepted into the Christian church and has some strong connections with the Bible. Regardless of a definitive author, it's important to look into these connections and try to understand their importance. Like the baby demon giants. Alright, enough about this Enoch guy. What about those visions and prophecies he saw? Well, the book features his multiple visions of hell. Specifically, hellish prisons for fallen angels. Angels who ended up defying God and were basically kicked out of heaven. These creatures are referred to by Enoch as the end of all things, something that only he was able to perceive and experience. This name stands up as these guys were able to introduce the world to some terrifying stuff, like how Azazel ended up introducing the concept of weaponry to the world, or Gadriel, who taught men and children how to wield that weaponry. Sure, thanks to them, we have sick fight scenes in movies, but to everyone who had just been taught this concept, they had been corrupted, crying as they went up to heaven, not knowing this violence taught would be passed on to future generations forevermore. At least they made it to heaven. But now, the big thing they all did. These fallen angels would take human wives, only to defile them, enchant them, and impregnate them. They would eventually give birth to creatures called Nephilim, or, how I've been referring to them, baby demon giants. An insanely impressive feat for the women, as these creatures were said to be 3,000 ells in height, which translates to 11,250 feet. Jesus, these baby demon giants were more than 2 miles tall. These terrifying behemoths ended up turning against man and devouring mankind, sinning against every living creature on the planet's existence. Man, what's with otherworldly creatures and fucking humans to create beings of unimaginable power? First aliens creating gods of mythology, now baby demon giants?
Might want to check out our video on those if you haven't, by the way. It's some really interesting stuff. Okay, back to the video now.
Eventually, God saw all this chaos and just fucking had it. He ended up sending one of his good angels, Uriel, all the way to good old Mr. Son of Lamech himself, saying that he's gonna solve this problem with the fallen angels and Nephilim by causing a fucking apocalypse. As you would in that situation. He does, however, say that he may avoid the end of the world and preserve his seed for generations to come. Wait a minute. A message from God explaining a way to avoid a cataclysmic event, all while preserving life that can live on for years and years after? Yup, this is the story of Noah's Ark, which means that the way God was going to kill all the baby demon giants was with a big-ass flood, using it to wipe out the sin, start over, and punish the wicked fallen angels for their actions. Whew. I love when everything comes full circle. At least, I think it does. It's kind of hard to know for sure if we can truly define this as the origin of the flood, when the source of where this is coming from is as complicated as the Book of Enoch. If you are one of the people who believe this story to be canon, great. You officially get to add baby demon giants to your tale of Noah's Ark whenever you please. But for those who don't consider this book reliable, what exactly is there to take out of this? Well, here's an interesting question to end off with. What if this was all a warning? Much of this book includes themes of distrust, abuse of power, sin, all causing the world to fall into anguish and making a reason for the flood to occur. Many ignore the book because of its moments of inconsistency and contradiction, but that means many also never see these themes and their implications on the real world. Sure, the Nephilim were wiped and the demons were destroyed, but everything the fallen angels forced and taught to the world still managed to stick around, with new sins still being introduced into modern societies. Whether they lie in environmental changes, political aspects, and more creations meant for destruction. Corruption still remains. So this information might be important to at the very least keep in mind. If it grows as big of a presence as it once did, our world may very well be on the verge of another apocalypse.
Or you can just remember the animals and the boat and Noah, because god damn it, how is he the son of Lamech?